Moving on from here, from an OpTic standpoint, coming from a different country and moving into India like this, we've never actually done a selection process like this. I don't think many teams have done this anywhere in the world, right? And the fact that you guys are here, we're making history, okay? Just understand this, we're making history right now, right?
I think what OpTic does that's historic is that they will bring in that knowledge transfer in the form of not just the coach, which I think is the most important ingredient, an international coach, but a full-time international coach, which will be the biggest knowledge transfer that this scene needs. But on top of that, I think they'll bring in the professional ecosystem, like of running a team, of guiding players, of improvement. Everybody went through the same thing. They had to do a theory test online, right? They had the main weightage was the practical itself, where we were observing your actual in-game expertise and all the things that go around it. We were measuring them. We're standing behind them with a spreadsheet out, rating them out of 5 in things like game sense, initiative, primary role, firepower, mechanics, movement, leadership qualities, decision making, all of these things. And we're writing down comments as well for each player.
At the end of the open tryouts, 2 players made it all the way to the final team. So Formless, or as I like to call him, Mr. Reliable. He's not a master of any particular trade, he's just a jack of all. I believe the best thing about Formless is actually his out-of-game personality and attributes. He's a very easygoing guy, very open to criticism, very coachable, and very willing to learn. And that's what gave him the edge to finally be part of the final 10 shortlist or the final 8 shortlist. Mostly as a lurker/support player, he'll do his job. I think it'll come down to the right kind of IGL, really unlocking his potential, figuring out how to utilize him correctly, and he is capable of dropping those 40 frags and being a star player. He's still a little bit green, so he needs to gain that experience and have the right person to unlock him. So Hevan is another guy who came from the open tryouts, that means from day 1, and he really impressed us and made it to day 2. And the main cause also is that he was playing in the IGL. He applied as an IGL, and there's a dearth of IGLs in the country, as is there in Asia. And most people who apply for IGLs, they are actually very far off from what is expected of an IGL. They don't even have the fundamentals right. They just feel like if they're talking a lot, then they're a good IGL, but that's not what it is. And Hevan had the fundamentals right. He's still green to the IGL role. I would say he's inexperienced compared to say like a Sai or a Hellranger, but he's starting off at a very good spot. Like he reads the game well. He wants absolute control of the team. He's a good micromanager. And he calls timings, and he's constantly talking. He's a calm presence. These are all very important attributes, fundamental attributes for an IGL. He's also fairly creative with his ideas and strat suggestions. He's a little bit green, but at least he's got his fundamentals right. He's a really good starting point for an IGL.
Where it got really hard was day 2, especially after that really epic match we had between most of the shortlisted candidates eventually, right? They made our job difficult. I mean, we were struggling to bring it down from 13 to 8. We really were. And we were at that point we started really looking at the details, the small details, like how coachable do we think he is, how cerebral do we think he is, like does he showcase leadership qualities, would he fold under pressure if he was given the opportunity to compete at a European bootcamp, for example. So we looked at a lot of these small details when we got down to the 30, and it was still being difficult.
But throughout this whole process, we found 3 other standout candidates, and that's Antidote, Forsaken, and Mushroom.
Another known quantity. He was the breakout newcomer of 2016, I believe, in the Asian League Premiership. I call him the mini Kenny S. I call him that because Entity, the team that I coach currently, plays him all the time, and he's really annoying to play against. And he was the one thing that really impressed me about Antidote is I've seen him from afar as an analyst, as a rival. But when I got to evaluate him, I noticed that he's not just a dynamic opera. He's got so much more. I mean, he was helping out with secondary calling. He was taking a lot of initiative. He was showcasing leadership. He understood the concept of being a float opera. So I would say he's 6 months away under a coach to becoming like an SCA level offer. He's already he's like 80% of the way there.
So Forsaken is a very interesting story for me because he was like the persona non grata of the scene. He rose to fame and success very quickly from being a nobody to somebody who was quite literally dominating most of the pro guys in the scene. Deservedly, because of his unknown status, he became somewhat of an onliner in the face of what most of the community thought of him. You know, people didn't want to scrim him, they didn't want him on next, but the good thing about this kid is that he has so much dedication and perseverance to be a pro player. It's his ultimate dream in life. So he fought through all that, kept playing, you know, started streaming to prove his innocence. And when he finally got his opportunity at LAN in the OpTic tryouts, he really shone. You know, he showcased everything that makes him such a great player. Very solid comms, really good understanding of the game, supporting as a secondary caller, taking initiative, but more than anything else, the guy just knows so many different ways to throw so many different types of utility, and it just makes him a very rare role player, a very rare support player in the scene. And to be honest, like I was recently having a conversation with Alex about the support role. Alex is the coach of Boot Dreamscape, and he basically told me, like, to be honest, like most of the time the best player of the team is a support player, because he needs to know exactly how the role player he's supporting plays. So he needs to know how to play as an opera, he needs to know how to play as an entry, he needs to know how to play as a lurker, so he can support them best, you know. And that's what players like Coldzera and Zipnix are some of the best support players in the world. People don't think of Coldzera as a support player, but he is. And I think Forsaken is the best candidate of having like an Indian all-round player. So Bashal's like somebody who you don't have to say much about. I mean, he's been talked about as the top 5 riflers in the country since he broke out at LAN, I would say in 2014-15, and he's been near the top of the scenes ever since. And he was an Entity player, now he's joining OpTic, and he was a star player for Entity. And the scary thing about him is that he's got the utmost confidence in himself being the best player in the country, and that he can take anybody on, no matter who's on the other side of the server. And he plays like that on LAN. Very consistent on LAN, has a very high peak. He becomes almost a lot of the times I've seen him when he goes into his zone on LAN, he's unplayable, and he constantly drops 30 frags on either side, whether it's CT or T side, primarily on the T side. So it's the kind of entry fragger you want, fearless, confident, you know, will do whatever it is, will run through 5 Molotovs to get that kill if his IGL asks him to. So it's the kind of, he's the freakazoid, you know, he's the apex, he's the magic, it's what you need. We had to shorten down from 1,400 applicants down to 80 in 2 weeks of online evaluation. From the 80, we had to cut down to a preliminary list of 8 in 2 days of LAN evaluation. That's not an easy task, but we're pretty happy with the 8 preliminary lists we selected, and now we're down to the final 5.
Hi, I'm Captain Cook.
My name is Formless.
My name is Trans.
OpTic India is
The most challenging LAN experience.
It's a chance for a Tamilian to learn some Hindi.
OpTic India is cutthroat and competitive.
Meeting new friends.
OpTic India is the only wall that any country needs.
OpTic India is a new beginning.